What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the Fightful Boxing Podcast, April 29th. I am Carlos Toro, joined by Sean Sapp, your boy. We'll be joined by Stephen Muehlhausen in a bit, but Sean is gonna be here for a little while to entertain the masses.
That's what I'm here to do, and I'll be talking a little bit about the entertainment aspect of this fight before Stephen joins us. Carlos, this is the best possible thing that could have happened to boxing for this event, for this fight. All the cards fell into the favor of the sport.
My goodness, absolutely. And I've talked with some people about 2016, and it was a down year for the sport. And the fact that this year so far has started off just phenomenally with so many major fights, and we have another one next Saturday with Julio Cesar Chavez and Canelo Alvarez, but honestly, the sport is so much better with the heavyweight division being interesting. And we have a brand new king of the heavyweights, as I'm now going to call Anthony Joshua. Knocked down Wladimir Klitschko 3 times, 2 times in the 11th round. And this was far from a boring fight. This was one of the most entertaining heavyweight fights I've seen in a long, long time.
It was perfect, and you got a lot of questions. Well, a lot of question marks answered as it pertains to Anthony Joshua. He went past 8 rounds for the first time. He overcame adversity. I mean, he got knocked down right after it looked like he emptied his gas tank against Klitschko. Then he said, no, I'm just going to switch gears a little bit, came back hard in that 10th and 11th round and put Klitschko away. That was phenomenal in front of 90,000 at Wembley. And now you have all these people like boxing. I wrote an article that will release tomorrow at 8 a.m. Boxing did it right. And that doesn't even involve the fight itself, from the entrances to the production to the venue to opening up fights. I mean, if Fury can get his stuff together, there you go. If Wilder wants it, there you go. Ortiz is still there too. There are a lot of options right now for boxing, but the fight itself was nothing short of outstanding.
Yeah, and Steve and I will get more into the logistics of the fight and all the technical aspects. But you're absolutely right. This fight has been really phenomenal. Everything about this fight was just incredible. Steve and I were just talking on the Thursday show. The marketing for this fight, the promotion for this fight was about as good as you can expect. And Eddie Hearn, who promotes Anthony Joshua, is arguably the best promoter in the sport right now. They've done tons of press tours in the United States to build up hype for this fight. And the fact that this fight is on Showtime and then it's going to be later on tonight at HBO, it just shows the absolute magnitude for this fight. And I think it's going to do potentially record-breaking TV numbers for Showtime. As honestly, how often do you actually see Showtime and HBO working together for any type of deal? And, on the state side and now at Wembley Stadium, 90,000. They broke the previous record by 10,000 people.
Oh, yeah.
It was.
This has far-reaching ramifications into other sports and forms of entertainment. It makes you wonder, why doesn't WWE run huge shows in England? Why didn't the UFC do everything that they could to get Conor McGregor in Croke Park? When you put the perfect fight in the perfect venue at the perfect time, special things like this happen. And I wrote in the column, they made a 90,000 seat arena look like a 200,000 seat arena. The production was magnificent. Like this was what boxing needed, because as you mentioned, it was a down year. And no matter what happens, you're always going to hear the boxing is dead stuff. Even if McGregor or Mayweather or Pacquiao sell like 4 million pay-per-view buys. After that, kind of goes downhill. And fights like this show you that ain't the case. Boxing is far from dead. That's a tired, beaten, dead horse narrative. And this fight on this night made it look like boxing was the biggest sport in the world, because you had a hometown guy. Well, not a hometown guy. Is he? I know he's British, obviously, but winning, overcoming adversity to win. He looked like the biggest star in the world. It was a phenomenal night for boxing.
Yeah, and you talk about WWE and you talk about UFC and how they're far and above, more important, more popular than boxing. If you think about this, and Mauro Ranallo on the broadcast, on the pre-fight broadcast, was just saying that He's been to WrestleMania, and it doesn't compare in terms of atmosphere to what we witnessed in London just now. I mean, let's face it, 90,000 people just came for one fight. When was the last time WrestleMania legitimately sold 90,000 tickets for a whole card?
Well, I think they may have last year. I'll have to look. But, I mean, that was for an entire card, and it was one time ever. And that was the record. That was the best they ever did. Boxing can do this. Boxing can, and they showed that they can after a down year. Imagine if boxing was, we got this all the time. Imagine, something special happens between Canelo and Cesar Chavez. Imagine Tyson Fury gets his head on straight. Imagine Deontay Wilder breaks through. If we have a very big, healthy heavyweight division, that's the start. That's the catalyst. Because in America, outside of Floyd Mayweather, a booming, healthy heavyweight division is, especially among English speakers, it goes a long way. And seeing an Anthony Joshua explode like that, a guy who a lot of people thought it was too soon. Some of his own people thought it was too soon. It wasn't too soon. And, Carlos, this is more of a question for you. What's the possibility of a rematch happening as opposed to a Wilder, a Fury, a Blue, an Ortiz, anybody like that?
I want to say that could be the immediate rematch, but it was going to take some time. Other guys such as Wilder, actually, Adam Pearson on the live chat was just saying Wilder and Blue just challenged each other when on the Sky Sports broadcast, so that could be a big fight. I think Tyson Fury, that might be closer for a 2018 fight because we don't know when he's going to come back. We don't know if he'll ever get his head on straight, but if he does, I would imagine that he'll want to fight a guy like Joseph Parker, who holds the WBO heavyweight title, and then make that a true unification bout between Joshua and Fury. And so right now, I think this is great for the heavyweight division. I think Joshua and Klitschko, they could totally do a fight in October, November, because neither guy are really that hurt. Klitschko, he got a pretty swollen left eye from a cut from that fourth round in which he got knocked down. But yeah, I mean, there really isn't going to be too much recovery time in terms of maybe needing a ton of rest, because honestly, they've done a ton of, they hit each other a lot, but I think that it isn't anything that's too serious in the long term. And Stephen Muehlhausen said he'll be joining us in a second.
Ooh, nice. Before he hops in, I want to mention, boxing is starting to fill their cupboard back up with stars, even old guys like Pacquiao coming out of retirement, Floyd Mayweather playing the hokey pokey with Conor McGregor, all that stuff. So you're starting to get some names like that. But when you got Deontay Wilder emerging to the casual fans, and I know that the PBC numbers haven't been what boxing expected, but people are going to find out about this Anthony Joshua Klitschko fight. There's just no way you can't. It was a special fight at a special time in a special place. It's going to help. But those entrances, and we talked about WrestleMania. Joshua didn't have an entrance song. He had an entrance album. That felt like, I got to have somebody clock that entrance. It felt like it was 15 minutes, and I wasn't tired of it. I was like, man, he's never went beyond 8 rounds. This entrance is going to get to him. I was like, that's 2 right there. That entrance is 2 rounds. He's cooked. No, that was unbelievable. The production was incredible. The entrance was incredible. And when you have a fight that not only lives up to what they put into the production, but exceeds it, and then the question marks after the fight even exceed the fight itself and the entrances and the production, that's a damn good thing. Because, I mean, it's boxing. You can't book your own finishes. You can book and hope that you get the finishes that you want and set up a situation like this where it's not, you're not limited. Like when Tyson Fury won, it's like, oh boy, what's going to happen now? And we all saw what happened. I want to know what you think is next for Anthony Joshua, and do you think that they will approach? Do you think they're going to make this effort, like I said, perfect time, perfect place, perfect opponent, perfect venue? I mean, this was the perfect encapsulation of smart promoting.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know there's likely going to be a rematch between Klitschko and Joshua, but I wouldn't put it past Eddie Hearn to say, okay, Tyson, if you show me that you are clean and you have your head on straight, there's no reason to believe they can't do 90,000 again at Wembley. I mean, Fury, was a big, got so popular in Britain after seemingly doing the impossible, because at some point we all kind of thought, when will Klitschko actually lose? And now you have two guys that done it, two British boxers. I can see this happening. I can see this also happening later in the year and holding off on a Klitschko rematch. But I think the smarter thing is to do that rematch, still capitalize while the iron is hot. And let's face it, Klitschko's 41. I mean, if you hold on to that fight for longer than it's needed, I mean, I don't think you're going to get as good a fight as we just witnessed, because it was a fantastic fight.
How much gas do you think Klitschko has left in the tank, as far as it pertains to his career? Because he took a long layoff before this fight. I mean, he hadn't fought since the Tyson Fury fight in November 2015. His last win is now 2 years ago. How much does he have left to give?
I mean, if you ask me, he's still a top 5 heavyweight. I don't know if he can.
He did drop Joshua.
Yeah, he did.
Wasn't like he got styled on the whole time.
Yeah, I think he can definitely hold his own against Anthony Joshua. He can hold his own against Tyson Fury. I'm actually curious what a Fury-Klitschko rematch would be. Maybe make that a IBF or a WBA eliminator, because the WBA and WBO are so fond of eliminators in the past month that I could see that happening. But really, outside of maybe, okay, you got Joshua, you got Fury, maybe you got Joseph Parker, and maybe Deontay Wilder, but I still think I give the edge to Klitschko against Wilder. But after that, I really don't think Klitschko would have any problems against any other heavyweights out there outside of maybe King Kong Ortiz, but we don't know when he's going to fight. It's weird when he'll fight, but if he does and he's at his best, he could give anybody, including Anthony Joshua, a lot of trouble.
A lot of hate in the live chat for Tyson Fury. Now, I'm a very casual boxing fan. I leave that to yourself and Steve Muehlhausen and Joe Hulbert, Konstantin Eckner, even Gabe Oppenheim on occasion. As we're joined by Steven Muehlhausen.
Hey,
explain to me why Tyson Fury is not just looked down upon. Like, I'm seeing straight up disgust in regards to a Tyson Fury, even though he beat Klitschko a year and a half ago.
Because he's crazy.
And that's really the extent of it. He's crazy. He's obviously seen as a black eye to the sport, but
is black eye the wrong word? Absolutely. You know, you look at him in general, and you were talking about the fight with Klitschko. If you look at tonight and look at 17 months ago, night and day of what we saw against Wladimir Klitschko. I've been told there were some things at the time he was going through that really affected him going into that fight. And you go at the age of 41, and we talked about this the other day, if 41 years of age, he shouldn't be doing what he did. And I think if Wladimir Klitschko fought Tyson Fury 17 months ago, Tyson Fury wouldn't have made it out of the third round. Tyson Fury is not that good of a fighter. Look at what he did after the fact. Postponed this fight twice with Klitschko. The fight ended up not happening. He had to relinquish his heavyweight titles, snorted coke, and ate a lot of Twinkies. He's ballooned. He has to lose 100 pounds just to get to the heavyweight limit of 265 pounds.
Oh, Lord.
This guy doesn't take it seriously. He just really doesn't. Is he a joke? I don't want to say that much because he was a former heavyweight champion of the world. If he never comes back, I will say he's a joke. But right now, that's to be determined.
Well, I'll let you guys get into breaking down the fight from a technical standpoint. It was fun to join you guys and just school you all basically on boxing the whole time. See you guys
I want
later.
to get your thoughts. Sean, I was going to say, I haven't seen Sean. And give me one. Now, wow. First, I'll start with wow. Carlos Toro, Steve Muehlhausen. I joined a couple minutes late. I had an article I had to finish up for another publication, so I do apologize for being a few minutes late. And you got this nice, good grin on your face here. And wow. Words can't describe this. And for the people that are just watching, this is the Fightful Boxing Podcast. Carlos Toro, Steve Muehlhausen. Thank you guys for watching. And we've seen a fight for the ages as Anthony Joshua defeats Wladimir Klitschko by 11th round TKO to retain the IBF heavyweight title and capture the IBO and the WBA heavyweight championship of the world. And is what the cool kids like to say, I guess. He is now a unified champion. So what a fight. What a scene. What do you think?
Michael Buffer said it best that this was one of the better all-time heavyweight title bouts in history. This was, and I had some worry right before the fight that one, Klitschko at 41 years old, 17 months removed from the sport, that he was going to be very slow, and Joshua was probably going to get cold feet in front of 90,000 people. I had that worry. But once the fifth round came about, oh my God, those stats were completely erased. It was a pure spectacle. It was a story of three different fights. Joshua in the first five rounds. Klitschko from round 6 through 8, and then Joshua from 9 to 11. It was three different fights, three different stories told, and honestly, everything about this fight, everything about this broadcast, the promotion, the event, is about as good as you can ask for in the sport.
You hit it right on the head. You hit it on the head. And I'll start with this. Have you watched a lot of fights in the UK? Have you watched, not even just recently, just kind of stuff, and even 5-10 years ago? Did you watch a lot of stuff even back then?
Well, I believe a year before, up until a year before I joined Fightful, the only really European fights I saw were the Klitschko fights on HBO. But since joining Fightful, I've seen several European bouts and European cards, especially in Britain and even in Germany. They know how to make the card special. I just wish the United States actually did more of this, where they have a WrestleMania type of feel. You really don't get that in the US, but you get that almost every time there's a major fight in Europe.
You hit it right on, and you just said it. Is one of the things there's a reason I answered it, just because like you said, the pomp and circumstance. You see the pomp and circumstance, and you're like, that was my immediate thought. I put it on Twitter. I'm like, why don't we get this in the United States? And it's always been like this every time I watch a European event, especially a Klitschko event. When you watch a Klitschko show, this is how it is. And you added a magnitude that he was facing a legit fighter, the way Eddie Hearn and the Klitschko team promoted this fight. And then you add the big caveat of it for the folks in the United States, have it on Showtime, the live broadcast. Then you're gonna, in about 4.5 hours, you're gonna see the immediate replay live, and only on, not live, but you can see it on HBO. So they gave it not just the European value, but the American value. And if you're watching this, if I'm a fight fan in the United States, if you're a boxing fan, you should be stomping right now, because why don't we get fights like this here in the United States? The circumstance, and then like you said, the fight delivered. You can have all the pomp and circumstance, and you can just have the show. And then the fight happens, and the fight sucks. This didn't suck here. This was the best heavyweight title fight I have seen. That I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of great heavyweights. I've seen Foreman. I've seen Tyson. I've seen Holyfield. I've seen Lennox Lewis. I think Riddick Bowe is a very underrated heavyweight as well. You know, we've been through this era of Wladimir Klitschko. You can legitimately make a case that this was the second greatest heavyweight title fight of all time behind Ali Frazier won the fight of the century. I think and you can even say it was better than Foreman and Ali to Thurlow and Manila. I think this fight was that good. You had the aging champion who many people didn't give a shot to. Thought that the young lion was going to roar right through him. That didn't happen. And it was a better fight than a lot of people expected. And the fight was amazing. It delivered on every level humanly possible.
So let's go, well, not round by round, but I guess section by section. The first 4 rounds, Joshua was actually fighting a very smart fight. He was the more active fighter, but he wasn't overly aggressive. Like, he knew he was going to have a late fight, probably in the 10th, 11th, 12th round. He didn't throw as many punches as you normally see from Anthony Joshua in these fights. And then you got the knockdown in the 5th round, in which Joshua started off just aggressively. But then after that, and this is where a lot of criticism of Anthony Joshua were thinking, he's never been in this atmosphere. He's never fought a boxer of that kind of caliber. And then Klitschko showed that veteran experience, and he dominated after Klitschko got knocked down the first time.
Now, how did you have, when you're looking at the first 4 rounds of the fight, what are you thinking at that point? Because we'll talk about these specific 4 rounds. What were you thinking at that point? How did you have the fight scored?
At what round again?
Rounds 1 through 4, because you were talking about that in particular. How did you have that score the first 4 rounds? Because I seen scores like all over the place.
Really?
I seen 3-1 Joshua. I seen 4-0 Joshua. I seen 2-2 2-2. How did you have it scored after the first 4 rounds?
I'm gonna go check it right back, but I believe I had it 4-0 Joshua.
Wow. I hit it. I hit it even.
Well, the 4th round was extremely close. It was a toss-up.
I had it. I got it here. I hit it even. I thought Joshua easily won the first round. I thought like you said, I thought he was, even though I thought Klitschko came right out. I thought Joshua had done enough. I had Joshua winning round 1, Klitschko winning 2 and 4. And to me, in my mind, the decisive rounds, I thought the most decisive round was rounds 1 and 3 for Joshua. But round 2, you could have gave to Joshua easily. I just thought Klitschko did a little more with the jab. He came out especially when he came out with that straight right hand to make a point to Joshua. I thought Joshua didn't do too much. I thought he was a lot of pushing of the jab. He wasn't throwing as much. And then the 3rd round, Joshua, I thought, won pretty easy. And then that 4th round, you could have went either way too. I thought Klitschko was more consistent in being the aggressor. And then Joshua came back in that later half of the round, but I thought Klitschko did more in that first half of the round than Joshua did. But it just all depends on how you score the fight. And now after the 4th round, you said you had it 4-0 Joshua. Are you thinking at this point, this is going to be a rout? This seemed just the way you felt at the time the fight was going.
Initially, I did. And right before the 5th round, I was thinking, and I remember perfectly, Klitschko is very gun shy, but not because he can't land a punch, but he wasn't throwing much. I feel like he was just saving himself for that middle round, for like in case Joshua did get winded, and he did in the 5th round after he scored the knockdown in the 5th round. I think Klitschko was just saving his energy like he should have, because we don't know Joshua's stamina in the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th round. So I think Klitschko was just saving his energy up until that point. I thought it was going to be a much closer fight, but I still thought Joshua was going to run away with the fight.
And you're thinking, I thought it was actually, I'm looking at the first 4 rounds, and I'm like, okay, I think we're going to be in for something here. Joshua was landing. There were instances where Joshua was landing the harder shots when I thought, okay, Klitschko's still in the fight. He's not throwing as much, but I saw what he was doing and why he was doing it. And he had done enough, I thought, to win a couple rounds. And then to get into the second story, and you get the knockdown in the fifth. Now you're watching that knockdown. I had a couple buddies here. We were watching the fight. And they looked at me and they're like, the fight's over. They looked, Joshua's ready to jump through the ring and start raising his hands like he won the fight. And then out of the ashes, Wladimir Klitschko showed the heart of a champion, and he came back firing. And when that knockdown happens, what are you thinking? Are you thinking what Joshua's thinking and is like, this fight's done? Either he's staying on his back and not going to get up, or he's going to get up and I'm going to pummel him, and this fight's going to end pretty quick.
I was thinking Klitschko is an extremely intelligent fighter. I knew that Klitschko was not going to lose after in that round after he got knocked down. I didn't think that fight was going to end immediately. And I definitely thought Joshua was going to be more aggressive after the knockdown. But then all of a sudden, he lost his breath, he lost his stamina all of a sudden, and Klitschko saw that immediately, and he went to work. The sixth round, he was hella dominant. And even after the knockdown in the fifth round, I was about to make it a 10-8. I was about to make it a 10-8 round for Joshua. And then the last 2 minutes, it was all Klitschko. I had to make it a 10-9 round for Klitschko.
Because, you're looking at that, and I agree with you 100%, because I see the knockdown, and I'm like, I actually thought he was done. I'm not going to sit here, and I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to lie to everyone watching and everyone that's going to listen. I thought he was done. Just because, and the guys brought it, in the Showtime crew, who I thought, by the way, for the most part, I thought did a really good job throughout the fight. And they brought up, he's 41, in his age. And I'm like, he's done. I just didn't. I'm thinking the way he got hit. First, uppercut, and then the hooks, and then he got dropped. And I'm like, he's done. There's no way he's getting up. And then he got up. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I'm like, okay, he's going to get pummeled. He didn't get pummeled. He came right back. Like he said, 2 minutes left in the round and went to work. And that's why I hated a 10-9. I know Steve Farhood from Showtime hated a 10-9. The idiotic judging out in England. Two of those judges actually were one was from Puerto Rico and the other one was from the United States. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know what they were thinking, how you score that at 10-8. That boggled my mind when we'll get to the final scorecards in a little while. But they scored that. Only one judge scored it at 10-9. And that was the guy that had Wladimir Klitschko winning the fight. Steve Farhood had it at 10-9. I saw some 10-8s on Twitter and Facebook. I hit it at 10-9, though. I agree with you on that. At first, I'm thinking this is going to be a 10-8. It's going to be an easy 10-8. But Klitschko showed the heart of a champion. And that really surprised me. Because you look at past fights when he got knocked down, he wilted. And he wilted quick. But he showed a lot of heart here. And I think he had a point to prove. I think not even just to the fans, but I think he had a point to prove to himself. Because these guys, and athletes, they hear the noise around them. And there was a lot of doubt on him coming into this fight. And he got up. And I give him a lot of credit. He came back firing, and if those ropes, if Anthony Joshua, and I thought this was great ring positioning by Joshua. He knew enough when Klitschko rocked him with the first left hook. He knew enough to stay against the ropes. Because if that's in the center of the ring, or even near maybe a little bit off center, I think Klitschko knocks down Joshua, and we maybe have a 9-9 round or a 9-8 round Klitschko in the fifth round. So I thought just the ring generalship there by Joshua, I thought that was very savvy fight IQ there. I really did. Because Klitschko had him in some trouble, and obviously they carried the momentum into the sixth round.
And you mentioned the ring generalship, the mental fortitude and we'll get to the later ones in a second, but I just wanted to briefly comment. Joshua showed a tremendous amount of heart and mental fortitude in this fight. Because by the time the 8th round was done, I was thinking Klitschko is going to knock down Joshua again, and Klitschko was going to win the fight. Because in the middle portion of the fight, he had all the momentum in the world, and if he could and tried, he could have even knocked down again and knocked out Joshua, and we'd be having a completely different podcast.
No, we would be having a completely different podcast, and we'll get into that in a minute. But you sit and, like you said, you sit and look at that, and you look in the early part. You give Klitschko all the credit, and we'll get into Joshua, and we'll give him all the credit in the world in a few minutes. But you're going into the 6th round. What are you thinking at this point? Because you're thinking Joshua looked devastated. He was tired. And he was devastated. You look at those eyes, and you can just tell the panic in his team of like, he was expecting to knock down Klitschko and that fight to be over. He made 18 people before him crumble and wilt. Wladimir Klitschko didn't crumble here. And at this point in the fight, Anthony Joshua was in a lot of trouble going into the 6th round. Did you get that same feeling, Carlos? Because I'm looking at him and I'm like, even though Klitschko knocked down, it felt like Klitschko won the round, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I thought so too. And I thought certainly one thing that really wasn't talked about, at least from my point of view, it's possible that people have been talking a lot about this, and I just wasn't listening in the right direction, is the fact that in the weigh-ins, Joshua was 10 pounds heavier. He was 250 pounds. That's the heaviest he's ever weighed in, I believe, in his career heading into weigh-in. And I thought, could it be that he maybe had just been focusing on getting too much muscle mass for this fight, that he didn't work on his cardio well enough? Because again, the cardio was probably the biggest concern, because we've never seen Joshua in a super late fight.
You know what? It's a very valid point. And I brought that up. I reached out to some people there yesterday because I saw the weigh-in, and I'm like, man, he doesn't look like he really hulked up. And I'm like, I reached out to some members of his team, and I'm like, did he really, how hard was he working on cardio? And they're like, better than what people will anticipate. He's going to surprise some people. I see that, and then you see him huffing and puffing, because he went for it all in that 4th round. It was either in that 5th round. Either he was going to win it. Actually, started seeing it. I'll take that back. You even started seeing it in the 4th round. He started looking a little tired. And then it carried on. And then I'm thinking that he knocked him out in the 5th. And I'm like, okay, he's fine. And then he just kept going for it. But he looked tired. He looked dejected. And I'm like, that's what I felt, even with the knockdown. And this was me, even though he won the round. Klitschko gained momentum, if that makes sense. It seemed like the tide had turned at that point in the fight, and then we saw what happened in the 6th.
Yeah, the 6th round was a completely different animal. So again, and just to sort of recap for anybody that wasn't able to catch the fight, and you can catch that on HBO later tonight, for the North American fans. So Klitschko won the 5th round despite being knocked down. Then he continued to attack Klitschko from the very beginning, and Klitschko scored an early knockdown of his own. And it seemed like he was going to get a second knockdown late in the round. His jab was as on point as we've seen from Klitschko in a long time, like pre Tyson Fury fight. And then I'm just thinking, like, Klitschko could knock down Joshua again, but I don't think he won't, because I think he's a smart enough person to not make this a slugfest, because in case Joshua gets that second wind, he'll at the very least be fighting a technical enough of a fight where he'll still be winning on points, but won't be giving Joshua the close and aggressive fight that Joshua wants, where he can take advantage of the uppercut. And he definitely took advantage of that late in the fight, and we'll still get into that in a sec. But I thought that Klitschko was fighting a very smart fight. He was being aggressive, but not giving Joshua time to, or at least an opportunity to get back in the fight, at least in the 5th to the 9th round.
You know, and I agree, and you brought up a very valid point. And when he knocked him down, I knew he'd get up. And it was patent Klitschko. And we said this on Thursday night. And by the way, if you want to see that podcast, go to Fightful.com or go to the Fightful YouTube channel and see that. It was the jab followed by the right, that straight patent right hand. As soon as that happened, I'm like, I don't know if he's gonna. I'm like, the way he hit him flush with that right hand, and then that short little left hook to seal the deal. And I'm like, okay, maybe. And then my one buddy's like, he's gonna get up. I'm like, okay. I went along with him because he's a pretty big boxing fan, and he knows enough. And then I think he could have finished the deal in the 6th. But I agree with what you were saying. He took his time, and because he's so calculated, he's so smart, like his brother. He's like, okay, I don't want to get too reckless. Because what if Joshua comes in, hits me with the left hook, and I'm going to get or short right uppercut, and I'm going to get dropped again. So I thought that was very tactical. And then if you look at, and you guys are watching the fight, you're watching the 7th round, another domination, the 8th round. I thought Joshua came back then, and the 9th round was close. But I did give it to Joshua. But if you look at round 6, 7, and 8, actually the last half of the 5th and the 6th, 7th, and 8th rounds, Klitschko went to work. And, you know, it all started with the jab. And the one thing I noticed, and we're in the first 9 rounds here, both fighters, more often than not, it was Klitschko who came out swinging. You don't see that in boxing in general, especially with the heavyweights. Now, before we get further, I wanted to give both guys a lot of credit just for that. They came to fight, and they came to fight for every single second of the fight. Not just for fighting. You see a lot of these guys like Mayweather, they'll fight for about 75 to 90 seconds. And the same thing with Pacquiao. These guys came in there and they fought. I think the fight lasted, about 32 minutes. These guys fought their hearts out for 32 minutes.
Yeah, and you mentioned that pivotal 9th round. I also gave it to Joshua, and I think that's when we started to see kind of that second win from Joshua, because Joshua we both gave Joshua the 9th round, but it still didn't quite seem like he was in control yet. And it was the 10th round. I think that's when Joshua finally got back into the fight, because the 10th round started. I think that's when we definitely got the Joshua from the first few rounds. And that 11th round, I think that was Joshua emptying the gas tank, putting it all on the line, because he knew if he could score a knockdown or even 2, I think no matter what happens in the 12, barring a knockout from Klitschko, he might have won the fight.
Now, you know, and you bring up a good point, and it was something I wanted to bring up, is that you're looking at, like you said, the 9th round. It was the best round Joshua I thought had, you know, since the 5th round. I thought that was the best that he looked. But like he said, it didn't seem like he had that much moment. He kind of eked out the round, and then, you know, I thought Joshua did I thought the 10th round was a great round by Joshua, because he started going more to the body. He did it in the 9th, but I thought he started doing it more in the 10th, and I think he then figured something out. And then, but then you get right at the end of the round, Klitschko lands a flush right hand, a straight right hand, and you're like, maybe that momentum was going to carry into the 11th. And I think, like you said, I think Joshua knew that he had to pour it on here. If he was going to do it, he was going to empty the gas tank in these final 6 minutes of the fight. There was only one way he was going to win, and it was going to win by knockout. And look at what happened.
So who did you have? So basically, who did you have in your final scorecards after?
I had it 95-94 Klitschko going into the 11th.
Ooh, see, I had it 95, I believe 95-94 Joshua
Okay.
because of those first two rounds. I think, however they and I don't have the official judges scorecards like round by round, but I think how they scored the first 4 rounds kind of determined the fight if you really think about it.
I got the scorecards right here. Judges Don Trella and Nelson. Don Trella hit it 96-93 for Joshua, and Nelson Vasquez had it 95-93 for Joshua, and Steve Weisfield had it 95-93 for Wladimir Klitschko. And then the unofficial scoring from Steve Farhood from Showtime, he hit it the same way I did. He hit it 95-94 for Klitschko. I've seen a lot of scores. People having it 96-93. It was either I've seen a lot of 96-93s for Joshua or 95-93 for 95-94 for Klitschko. I don't know where a lot of people are getting 96-93. I didn't see a lot of room where, especially the first 4 rounds, a lot of people gave Joshua the first 4 rounds, and each his own. I'm not going to sit here and criticize media judging, and but I'm going to criticize the judging that the 3 scorecards that matter the most, and then the judges that gave a 10-8.
Yeah, I don't see
where a 10-8 is. I don't see what a 10-8 where you get a 10-8 at. I'm trying to figure out where I see a 10-8 round here. I really, really don't. And I'm looking. Yeah, a lot of people. I'm seeing 10-9, some 10-9 Joshua's. I've seen some 10-8s. Just kind of looking here on Twitter a little bit, but let's get to the 11th, and this is where, and like you said, you were talking about, this is where Joshua sealed the deal, and he really poured it on. He really, really, and I give Joshua a lot of credit because he did pour it on, but that uppercut, you're seeing this uppercut. And it was beautiful. And they were right on the inside. I didn't think Joshua would have enough room, even though because he had the reach advantage. I didn't think he'd be able to kind of turn his body enough and get there. And I give Joshua a lot of credit. And you give Klitschko a lot of credit. Any normal heavyweight would have crumbled to that uppercut. But Wladimir Klitschko kept going. And then he's seen the left and right hands to the body, and then the left hook, then the knockdown with the left hook followed by the right hand and another left hook. Sent him packing. But at that point, what are you thinking? When he's pouring it on here and gets the first knockdown in the 11th, are you thinking, okay, this is done? Or is Klitschko getting up? Or is the referee just going to call it off? What's going on in your mind at this point of the fight?
See, I didn't think after the first knockdown that the referee was going to stop the fight. Because, even though Joshua had a great 10th round, I didn't think he did that much damage that would warrant the referee to stop the fight after one knockdown. I really didn't think. But you mentioned the uppercut, a great point. The uppercut wasn't really landing as well as we were accustomed to seeing from Joshua throughout his career. But I think that 10th and 11th round, that's when we kind of saw the uppercut connect. And I'm thinking after that first knockdown and saying, okay, I'm pretty sure Joshua is going to be much more aggressive and not give Klitschko an opportunity to bounce back like what happened in the 5th round. And I thought, okay, this is, Klitschko's left eye was swollen. There was a cut there. I'm going to go headhunting and make the fight and potentially knock him out again. And if I do, and even if I gas myself out in the 12th round, scoring 2 knockdowns kind of essentially sealed the deal, because even though one of the judges had it for Klitschko, that was going to be a 10-7 round for Joshua.
More than likely. It would have been a 10-7 round. And maybe, unless Klitschko came back near the end, maybe you can make it a 10-8. But it looked like it was going on his way to a 10-7. And even on the one card, it would have been even. And Klitschko would have needed a knockout to win. And I thought the first one, he wasn't done. And then you look at the second one, and I thought this was smart by Joshua. But then you have to give Klitschko credit. Klitschko came back with a left hook that seemed to kind of wobble Joshua for a moment. That hit Joshua stunned for a moment. I'm like, no. But then Joshua was smart enough. Instead of letting Klitschko get the momentum, Joshua showed the heart of a lion, the heart of a champion. And then just started ripping the body, went back to combinations, and then dropped him again. Then a beautiful uppercut, and then dropped him again. I'm thinking at this point, the fight's done. Call the fight. This is gonna be this is gonna be a massacre. But then Klitschko got up, and I'm like, and then for a split second, I thought Klitschko was gonna come back and knock him down. I'm thinking, okay, Klitschko's gonna come back here. Klitschko hit, I think it was like a very weak right hand. And then Joshua said, I'm done. This is over. This is over, buddy. I'm sending you home. And then he just went back to work and poured it on with a couple of lefts and rights, and the fight was over. And then the fight ended, and what happened. We'll talk about that in a moment. But you get, at the end of the day, and then you see the roaring crowd of 90,000 screaming people in London. Anthony Joshua did it. He wins by 11th round TKO and becomes a unified champion, WBA, IBF, IBO heavyweight champion of the world. And what are your thoughts at that point? The fight's over. What are you thinking at that point?
I immediately thought that this was one of the best heavyweight fights I've ever seen, and probably arguably the best heavyweight fight of the century. First of all, I was still beyond hyped when the fight ended. And the fact that we have the new face of the heavyweight division, because let's face it, even though Tyson Fury won, I don't really think he was going to be the face of the division. But then you have someone like Joshua, young, 27 years old, Olympic gold medalist, British homegrown. And I know Tyson Fury is also from Europe, and he'd be a big face for European boxing. But then you have someone like Joshua, who, and I want to give him a lot of credit. He showed the utmost respect and showed unbelievable levels of class for Klitschko after the fight. I mean, okay, I'm not the biggest Wladimir Klitschko fan in the world, but I do appreciate the dominance that he's had in this sport. And Klitschko, giving kudos to Klitschko for the career, and pointing to guys like Lennox Lewis and Evander Holyfield for being his inspirations growing up. This felt like a coronation. This felt like as if a guy like Daniel Bryan winning the WWE World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania 30, or John Cena beating JBL at WrestleMania, I think 23, to win his first WWE title. This felt like a coronation of like the new face of the sport.
Basing it off of what you're talking about there, you look at it, and you're looking at it here, and you see the fight ending, and you see these screaming Brits, and you're amazed, because it shows how many people care about boxing, and it's rabid in the UK. But then you go to this, and this is something I'm going to be writing later, and something I didn't want to write it earlier in the week because a lot of people have been writing this, and I know you've seen a lot of stuff too, that Joshua win and he's the king of boxing. You make that case now. Anthony Joshua is the best heavyweight in the world. No disrespect to Deontay Wilder. No disrespect to Joseph Parker, Andy Ruiz, Tyson Fury, Huey Fury, anyone else, Wladimir Klitschko, anyone else you want to say, this guy's the man. Plain and simple. He is the king of boxing. That you look at this evening, they were making a minimum $13 million and you look at his sponsor with the pay-per-view through Sky Box Office, they were projecting, from what people were telling me, about right around 1.5 million buys on the English pay-per-view. And so you're looking at, they're projected to make north of, I've been told, about $25 million. And then you have Joshua sponsors. He's got so many sponsors. It is amazing. He's a sponsor king. I think like Nike, Under Armour, a bunch of apparel, tech companies, and this guy's a star. You look at him, he's a star. He's 19-0, 19 wins by way of knockout. He just beat the best heavyweight in the last 15 years. Bar down. He beat him. He stopped him. He did something Tyson Fury couldn't do. He stopped him and became the man. This is the face of boxing. And he was gracious, where a lot of guys would have pummeled Klitschko and said, you're old, you didn't belong in the ring with me, blah, blah, blah. But he was gracious. And it's a breath of fresh air in my mind. Because if you look at this era of Mayweather and flashing his bling and beating women and thinking he's the coolest thing since sliced bread and I'm the A-side, blah, blah, blah. This kid's the king. Move over Floyd. Move over Manny. This guy is the king. He will be the king as long as he wants to be. No offense, but he is the king of boxing.
And what we're seeing right now is a guy who has the potential to reach a level of global stardom because he's a heavyweight and people are going to gravitate more towards heavyweight boxers than any other division. I could see Joshua, if they market him well enough, and I think Eddie Hearn's a smart enough promoter to do this, I can see a guy like Joshua getting not at the same level, but close, about the highest level of stardom in terms of being a boxing megastar since Mike Tyson.
Why is that? Is it just what in your mind? What is the reasoning? What do you think? Is it just because of his hard-hitting natured style, or is it in your mind the whole package?
In a way, it is kind of the whole package, because you look at, 19 wins, 19 knockouts, that's Tyson-esque, first of all. And to get that 19th knockout to Wladimir Klitschko, a guy who has not been knocked down since, and I forgot the year, I think it was 2003 against Lamont Brewster. A guy like him is the complete package. First of all, he's unbelievably gracious, and I think British fans are going to love him even more. I think the smart marketing done in New York is going to liken him to be a box office draw. If he were to go to an MSG or a Barclays Center, I can see him going to the Barclays Center because he's with Showtime. And as I mentioned, I think it's a complete package. I think he has the right kind of promoter in Eddie Hearn, who always has a plan A, B, and C when it comes to marketing his fighters and promoting fights. And so overall, I think Joshua is also young enough to be able to keep growing as a boxer. He's only 27. If you think about it, 27, he's just entering his physical prime as an athlete. So you still got several years of Anthony Joshua being at the top of the heavyweight division. And you got a ton of interesting fights to do so. Like, tell me you wouldn't a fight between Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua wouldn't sell in the United States. It would. Or a guy like Joseph Parker, or a guy like Tyson Fury, if that fight should ever happen, or a rematch against Klitschko. There were so many different opportunities to make humongous cards based around Joshua that you can give yourselves an opportunity to make him a mega star in boxing. I think he, right behind Canelo and right behind Golovkin, he's up there. He's number 3 in terms of star power in boxing today.
And that's amazing because it's a guy who's never fought here. And that's like that's what's the aura about him. He's in 19 fights, has never even fought outside of England. And he's already a superstar. Like you said, I think he's even ahead of Golovkin. It's still Canelo. But if you're looking in terms of star power, but if you want to look at it just based off today, it's Anthony Joshua. We'll see what Canelo does next week, and we'll get into that next week. But if Canelo gets by Chavez, and I think that's a big test, that's going to be a huge test for Canelo Alvarez. If he gets by Chavez, I know you look at it in terms, and I know people don't like hearing this stuff, but I know, like, in terms of, like, just metrics. and I don't know the metrics yet for this fight. It's way too early to tell. And we get a better indication of that. You can say starting tomorrow or even Monday. Canelo's still the bigger star. I'm intrigued by what the rating is on Showtime, what the rating is on HBO, what the pay-per-view buys are out in England. I know just in terms of interest right now, talking to people, my phone's been blowing up. I've looked at my phone a couple times, and I greatly apologize, you guys. I'm getting texts from everybody, non-fight fans. I'm getting text messages and Twitter DMs and emails from people in boxing saying how amazing this fight was. You don't get that unless it really was. And this is, like you said, I think this is the greatest fight. And I think the greatest heavyweight fight that I've seen since Holyfield-Tyson in 96, when Holyfield upset Tyson. And then in terms of what I've seen, this is probably the greatest heavyweight fight. I think it eclipsed Holyfield-Tyson. This was the greatest heavyweight fight I've ever seen. This fight was amazing. And everything you were looking for, Carlos. You had, like you said, it had a couple different layers going into the fight, and then some storylines that played in the fight. And this fight was amazing. And you're talking in terms of star power, in terms of next fights. Where do you go at this point? You brought up a couple guys. You brought up Wilder. You brought up Parker. You brought up Tyson Fury. You brought up Wladimir Klitschko. What do you do now with Anthony Joshua? He basically can call his ticket here. And something before you answer, something people don't remember, I don't think a lot of people know about, and Klitschko brought it up during his interview. This was a 2-fight deal. A lot of people thought if Klitschko got blown out, which a lot of people were thinking, that second fight doesn't happen. There is a second fight in this contract. So let's keep that in mind as well as what happens next. Klitschko really didn't say what he was going to do. At the beginning, he hinted like, maybe I will. But then maybe towards the end, he was like, this was good for boxing. Maybe this is going to be time for me to go. What do you think happens next? Do we get a rematch, or do you think something else happens here? Joshua fights maybe an interim and then somebody else, or what happens in your mind in this scenario? So I think this is quite intriguing, and we're going to now get into this. I think this is going to be a big issue for, I think the next little bit here.
Now, Sean and I were discussing this at the start of the podcast before you came up. And one thing that someone was texting me, Tony Bellew and David Hay, I think it was, no, Wilder and Tony Bellew. They were challenging each other on the Sky Sportsnet post-fight fight. So that could be another big fight on the heavyweight division. For Joshua, I think they might want to do the Klitschko fight while the iron is hot, and maybe save that for an October date. Because if you think about it, Klitschko is 41. He turns 42 later in the year. He's not a spring chicken. And the longer you wait this out, the less likely we're going to have a fight like this again if and when it'll happen. It's still too soon for Tyson Fury to just immediately come out and say, all right, I'm going to fight Anthony Joshua. There's some people.
Absolutely.
And even Anthony Joshua was calling out Tyson Fury after the fight. We don't know when he's going to come back. And it's no longer a question of when he's coming back. It's a question of if he's coming back, if he'll be in shape, if he'll keep his head on straight, if he'll fix all his personal demons. And, still prove he's still the type of fighter that beat Wladimir Klitschko. Even though it was a bit of a watered-down Wladimir Klitschko, I can see, as I was telling Sean, I can see an October fight for Joshua and Klitschko, and then maybe have a Tyson Fury fight, if everything works out with him, somewhere in early 2018. I can see that happening.
There's a lot. You look at there's so many intriguing scenarios here. Tyson Fury's not getting that fight next. I think it was like Anthony Joshua just trying to get the crowd a little excited. I'm not going to go out on that far of a limb in terms of that fight. I just don't think that's realistic yet. But I do think we see a rematch next. There's too much money to be made here. And this comes in terms of also dollars and cents. These guys are going to make a lot of money here. Hands down. They're going to make a lot of money. Klitschko didn't look horrible. A lot of people were expecting him to look 41. He didn't look 41. He came in shape. He came to win. And he kept saying throughout the week, he was obsessed of getting his belts back. And it showed in this fight. Like you said, there's Deontay Wilder, there's Joseph Parker, you got Andy Ruiz, who I'm very intrigued by. You got King Kong Ortiz. I don't want to forget about him. He's a wild card in all this, I think. But what I think we get next, and I know this is going to piss off the Deontay Wilder fans, but I don't really care. I think Wilder faces Parker. I think that happens probably, I would say probably July or August. See Klitschko and I do think we see Klitschko and Joshua go at it again. October, November, but it takes place in the United States. And this is why. I'm going to make a case. Look at the pomp, and we go back to what we said at the beginning. Look at the pomp and circumstance of what you've seen at the beginning. You can put that in MetLife Stadium in New York, and I think it would sell out. Hit the Garden. No, I love Madison Square Garden Center. But if you're going to do this big, and you see what they did there, you do it at MetLife Stadium in New York. But the thing is, too, the weather. But if you can't do November, you get October is even hit or miss. But it was only like 50 degrees in England. It was 51 degrees at bell time. If you can get about that in October, I think you can do it. Not going to be MetLife Stadium, you do it. Obviously, you do it at the Garden. Heavyweight title fight. Barclays Center isn't a bad idea. I can see that being out just due to the Showtime affiliation. But HBO holds the cards in the rematch. And this is what a lot of people a lot of people aren't bringing up either. If a second fight happens, HBO has the rights here. So then it goes, I think either way you put it in the Garden, regardless if it's HBO, Showtime, whatever, and that's for another talk. But I think you go Wilder Parker. I think you go Klitschko, Klitschko and Joshua too. And then maybe Tyson Fury and Tony Bellew. Or even you put maybe, I don't know, maybe then you maybe do Ortiz and Andy Ruiz. You do that fight. You have a nice little scenario here with 8 guys. And this is all if Klitschko comes back. If Klitschko doesn't come back, then I think you go Joshua. I wouldn't even mind Joshua and Ortiz. I don't think they go that route, but I think maybe then I don't want to jump the gun on Joshua Wilder. I want that to simmer. I want that to bubble. I want that to boil a little bit. Have them win. Even if Joshua took an interim, I'm fine with that too. If Klitschko decides to retire. Either way, I think 2018, we see Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. I think it's going to happen because I think Wilder gets by Parker, even though Parker is no joke. But I think I think that's the scenario I have. I can be wrong. You could be wrong. But I think that's really where I think this all boils down to. It all boils down to Wladimir Klitschko and what he decides to do.
What do you mean?
He exercises this rematch. I can't blame him.
What do you mean if I'm wrong?
Say that again?
What do you mean if I'm wrong? I'm always right.
Hey, easy, champ. Easy there. You sound like a woman. Women are always saying they're right. You're not a woman, man. Come on. No offense to women. I know. And I want to thank our fans, by the way. We got some comments on Twitter that I really appreciate, and that meant a lot to me. And we had a couple casuals, and I've gotten a lot of feedback as well from people that aren't normal boxing fans, and they enjoy our for some reason, they enjoy us. I don't know why. They enjoy our banter, apparently. Nature, but no, you're not a woman. You're not always right. I'm not always right. Now, if there's anyone that's always right out of the both of us here, we know who it is.
Of course, me.
Easy.
You've only gotten one thing right. Was Lomachenko stopping Jason Silva in the correct round? That's the only thing I will give you.
Wait. Okay. Who did you pick to win? We both picked Joshua to win. We went that far. But what round did you pick?
I had him in the 10th.
This time. Hey, there you go, champ. There you go.
I think I was one round off in predicting Berto Porter. I think it was 1 round off. I don't remember if it was 1 round over or 1 round under.
I either picked the 6th or 7th. I think you had like the 8th. You had the 8th or the 10th in that fight.
I don't remember.
I forget. Okay, you got me by 1. Okay, I'll get you next week for Canelo Chavez. I'll come. I will bounce back. Damn it! I will bounce back and I will kick your ass, brother.
We will see. We will see.
But now you look at this. What do you think happens at the end of the day? What do you think? Do you think Klitschko? We'll get into Klitschko. If you're Wladimir Klitschko right now, and you're either in the lot getting, taking a shower, you're getting ready to leave, or you've already left and you're at the hotel. What do you do at this point? You're 25-4 in title fights. You made 18 consecutive title defenses. You're the former unified champion of the world. You were regarded as the best heavyweight of the last about 10 plus years. You were very, very competitive. You knocked down the heavyweight champion of the world. Even though you still lost, you still got stopped. I mean, if you're going to get stopped, this is the way to go, because it was an amazing fight. What do you do at this point? I say continue on. I say you continue the fight. You're still good. If you say you lose to Joshua again, okay, then you're nowhere near the title. Then you're done. Time to retire, champ. But I think at this point, if I'm Wladimir Klitschko, I continue. I really do. So there's too much money to be made in a rematch. Then if you do it here in the States, there's a lot more money to be made if you're in the United States. So I'm a proponent of Klitschko coming back for one more. At least one more.
Yeah, same. I mean, let's face it. Okay, and this is sort of the case I had with Bernard Hopkins, is that, yeah, he's really old, and he should probably start thinking about retirement. And if you really think about it, he's still one of the top fighters of his division, despite how old he is. And one thing that I noticed that I thought was interesting when he was making his post-fight speech was that he was talking more about the event and the spectacle and how special it was. I think you're right. I think Klitschko is smart enough to realize you can replicate that kind of atmosphere no matter where you go. If it's MetLife, if it's Wembley again, I think he's smart enough to know we can do this again. And who knows? I could come out as the champ again, and we'll continue fighting if I win the rematch until some other up-and-comer beats me or Joshua beats me in a rubber fight. And then when that happens, that's when I'll retire.
Very valid points. That's exactly the scenario that I'm thinking, is because this wasn't an event. You look at it got to the point where they did the pan out of the entire crowd before they even walked to the ring. And you're looking and you're like, I was blown away. And like I said, I had a couple buddies over and they were just like in awe. They had never seen a card from across the pond. And they're like, this is great. This is like what WWE should be doing, and UFC, and what they should be doing for boxing here in the United States. And then you're seeing Sweet Caroline. 90,000 people, Carlos, in unison. I love Sweet Caroline. Who the hell sings Neil Diamond in a fight card? That is amazing. I was blown away at that point.
The best fans in the world, in my opinion.
If I wasn't covering this, I would have just thrown it. I would have called it a day. I would have started slamming beers. If I wasn't covering this, I would have went and started slamming beers. That's how just amazed I was, and the pageantry of that. I cut you off. I'm so sorry. I'm just really amped up by the fact that Neil Diamond was a freaking hit. It was a hit throughout this. I think that's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. In my opinion, I think British sports fans are the best fans in terms of a country in the world. Listen, I love Puerto Rico. I'm a Puerto Rican, through and through. Spent 18 years in there, but not Puerto Rico, not the United States. I think England have the most passionate fans in the world in terms of sports. You look at any Barclays Premier League game. You look at whenever NXT or WWE Raw and SmackDown go to England, or any major boxing fight. It's always unbelievable. The fans elevate any card in Britain into a whole different level that I honestly wish the United States would try to replicate more of.
Why do you think we don't get that here in the States? Because it was something the short time I had to sit and think about it. Why do you think that's the case? Why do you think these promoters like Bob Arum and Oscar De La Hoya and, Al Heyman and, and all these guys, why do you think they don't get the intelligence enough? If you look at this is what should be done for mega fights. There's no reason why it shouldn't be. Why do you think it is? It boggles my mind these guys don't get it. I look at that, and that's what I would do next. If I would do, like, whether it's Joshua Klitschko or Wilder and Joshua, if it's not in a stadium, they're doing themselves an injustice. In all honesty, if it's going to be in the States.
To answer that question specifically, I think partially it's a generational divide between those promoters, between like the Al Heymans or the Bob Arums in the world. And you look at the promoters at K1 Promotions, you look at Eddie Hearn, you mean there's a couple of decades of age dividing them. Eddie Hearn's the younger guy who is more in tune with these fans, and I think Eddie understands the fight game probably better than any promoter right now. Right now, I think Eddie Hearn understands the fight game as a promoter more so than any other boxing promoter, because all the fights, all the cards that he's done this year have been sensational. You look at the first card of 2017, the first major card, James DeGale versus Badochak. If you had asked me which of the two cards would have drawn a bigger attendance at the Barclays Center, that card or Sean Porter, Andre Berto, I would have said Berto Porter by a landslide.
Just based on the names, you think that,
But then you look at Eddie Hearn. He's able to draw 1,000 people more to the Barclays for his fight than Berto Porter, which on the undercard for Berto Porter, it was a much better and much more entertaining undercard. And the undercard was sort of similar to Jack card. So I think it's Eddie Hearn is a younger, more in tune with the fans type of promoter, and I think he understands what the fans want.
And that's the whole thing. And you said it right at the beginning, and it's spot on. You were spot on. Sorry to cut you off, but you're spot on. Eddie Hearn gets it. He's young. He's in his 40s. He gets it. I'm shocked Oscar doesn't get it. And that's always the thing. Oscar gets it to a point because he's had Canelo fight at like the Alamo Dome. And he's had him at Minute Maid Stadium. Oscar De La Hoya gets it to a point. But why Canelo, and we'll get into this next thing, why Canelo and Chavez Jr. is not at Cowboys Stadium boggles my I almost said it. Like, goddamn mind. I almost dropped an F-bomb. I almost would have gotten fired today. But that should have been at Cowboys Stadium. Eddie Hearn gets it because Eddie Hearn realized, okay, I may have to lower some of these ticket prices, but I'm going to get the magnitude of the event. I'm still going to make a lot of money. A lot of money. Pay-per-view. And then you have all the advertising you were in the sponsors that you were able to get to come on board. Eddie Hearn got it. Is the best promoter in boxing. If no one realized that this evening, he is the best promoter in boxing. And you had everything. Everything just worked. The promotion was good. The pomp and circumstance that Joshua Klitschko walking to the ring. It delivered. Perfect evening for boxing. It really was. People doubted the heavyweight division. They were wondering, it was floundering. But then you had the young guns coming in, the Wilders and the Parkers, the Ruizes, led by Anthony Joshua. And then you had the old guard, the last remaining bit of the old guard in boxing. And he fought. And he bounced. He got up off the canvas. Heck. And he was moments away. If he would have fought like he was fighting in the middle part of the fight, Wladimir Klitschko could have been the second fighter at the age of 40, over the age of 40, to become heavyweight champion of the world. He didn't win, but the fight, it was the perfect evening for boxing. It was the perfect evening for heavyweight boxing, and best fight I've seen in 2017. This is the best fight I've seen in a long time. And just when you get two big names, and you know this, names, guys, usually the fight sucks. You look at Canelo Cotto, that was a wipeout. Mayweather Pacquiao, sure and hell, didn't deliver. Two big names went in there and left it all on the line. Left it all on the table. And we got one of the great fights. Perhaps one of the top heavyweight fights of all time. And definitely the best fight this year, and perhaps the best heavyweight title fight in the last 40 years. Because you give Eddie Hearn credit and the guys at K2, Klitschko's promotional team, but mostly Eddie Hearn. You give them guys a lot of credit. Good evening. They really did.
One thing, and I'm just going for the live chat, is that to answer sort of back to the question of why the English fans are like this at pretty much every single sporting event, is that one, the culture is different from here in the United States, and I agree, the culture is a big reason. And so some of the other countries, and I apologize for not giving some of these other countries like enough credit, because I think they're also extremely passionate sports fans, like Brazil. C Phoenix said Brazilian fans are equally as loud and hyped at sporting events, gives it a bigger event feel. I agree, because I'm a humongous soccer fan, and I certainly vouch for how passionate and loud Brazilian fans are. But yeah, I think that English fans are much better, and I think that this fight was about as good as you can expect in terms of quality, in terms of pomp and circumstance, as you mentioned, in terms of the result. As cool as it would have been for Klitschko to finally get back on the mountain after so many people written him off, the better story is by far Joshua becoming the new face of the division.
It is. And back in that, I didn't even answer that question. I am so sorry. I don't know where I was going. I'm just so pumped. It's just such a, it's such a great day and great time to be a boxer. And I'll preface this to start with, we're fans. At the beginning of the day, we wouldn't be doing this if we weren't fans, first and foremost. And it just happens that we write about this and we do podcasts and stuff like that. And so I do, I'm not going to apologize. Forget you guys. Why am I going to apologize? I'm not going to apologize for anything. But no, going back to that, in terms of boxing, England's king. England gets it. The UK, like, they were talking about it. I thought it was a good setup at the beginning of the broadcast. Sometime. A nice jab, by the way, by Mauro Ronaldo in comparing Joshua Klitschko and said it was more or less saying it was bigger than WrestleMania.
I loved it. I love that little jab that Mauro did. I loved it.
I texted him. He didn't answer back because I know he's extremely busy. Dude, that was a great comment. And I put it on Twitter too because I thought that was great. But they said it, they hit it on the head right at the beginning of how rabid these fans are. They love sports. They love combat sports. They love soccer. They love rugby. They love the wrestling. And they in the UK. For people that don't know that, and this is where the sport started. And they get it. Where I don't think the United States, we don't get it as much here. And they get it there. And you see that. You see how excited they are. 90,000 people. They get it. They came for the show. They came for Anthony Joshua. They came for their home countryman. And he delivered. And no offense to Brazil. Brazil's got a rabid MMA fan base. Don't get me wrong. Canadians love their hockey. But and we love our American football, but at the end of it, you talk about the best fan base in the world, and I'm not saying this just because, and you look and you be general and you be honest with yourself. Boxing is the English fan base in the UK, bar none, are the greatest fans in the world. There's no doubt about it. If this last, I'm looking at my clock here. Sorry about that. If the last 3 hours make people realize that, then I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. I'm sold.
Yeah, same. I mean, I love whenever I have to cover a British boxing card, especially the one Sky Sports broadcast. I love because I know I'm in for a show. And the fights are always good. They're always at least decent. The last Sky Sports card that I covered was a Terry Flanagan one, and that wasn't a bad fight.
Oh, that was a good fight.
Yeah, it was a good fight, and the whole atmosphere, the whole feel of the fight and the event was elevated by a lot. Like you wouldn't get that kind of atmosphere if you had done that exact same card in New York or Las Vegas.
No, and it's a shame. It really is, because I love, but does this bring back, and because in my mind, does it help revitalize boxing? I don't know. Because it's at always age, boxing goes as the heavyweight division goes. This is a great start. I don't know if it will definitely do it, but this fight, and I'm going to get reamed for this, and I know I'm going to, and I'm more than fine with it, because I just don't care, and it's how I feel. If this did what Mayweather Pacquiao should have been, and toe to toe for Klitschko and Joshua didn't do it. There was times they were boxing. There were times they were going to the body and they were connecting. They were trying to. I saw a lot of good jabs this evening, especially by Joshua, which I was very surprised by. He was in the Olympics, and we've seen more of that from him. We've seen some pure boxing this evening. It wasn't just all knock 'em, sock 'em robots. They were these are two well-oiled machines. These aren't just two guys, barroom brawlers, standing in the middle of the ring. But this is what Mayweather Pacquiao should have been. Yeah. This evening. At the end of the day, that's what it was. This chance of bringing back boxing fans than Mayweather Pacquiao. I am a firm believer in that.
Yeah, I think overall this was a great night for boxing. I think it's a little too soon to say whether this helped boxing in the absolute long run. I think we'll get a better sense of that maybe on Monday when we have the final numbers for both the Showtime and HBO telecast. Because if combined, and I'm not looking at just simply the Showtime live broadcast, if the HBO numbers are also pretty good, then I think we'll get a better indicator whether or not Anthony Joshua can draw in the United States, but also can the heavyweight division that's now back in the fold as one of the most popular divisions in the world, and the sport itself gets a whole lot better.
I'm glad you brought that up. What number you brought it up? What number do you have in mind? You're thinking about it. Because obviously you are. Combined. If you want to give combined or you want to give individual, and then we go into combined, we're smart enough to do math, hopefully. Where do you think, what are you looking at in your mind? What do you think numbers-wise?
Ooh, that is a... See, when you and I discussed this on Thursday, I believe you said that Joshua got 400,000 in this last fight on show.
It was right under. I have it right here.
I believe
he did. It was 392,000 viewers.
Okay, give or take 400.
Live.
Yeah, live.
Against a guy, Deontay Wilder, also smashed.
And a replacement fighter.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, combined, I think this could do $1.5 million. I think this could do $1.5 million combined. And it's difficult because
that's a bad number, don't you
Really?
think? That's a
Bad
bad.
number?
That's a bad number.
well,
Because you got to look.
think about how many
No, go ahead.
people actually. Well, think about how many people actually tune in. Because on average, how often do you actually see HBO and Showtime or any of those telecasts actually doing 7 figures in terms of viewership? Golovkin struggles sometimes to draw over 1 million viewers
But he gets there.
in HBO.
But he gets there. But he gets
He
there.
gets there,
You got to.
but it gets there, but it's not easy. I'm gonna say, you know what? I think you're right. Maybe thinking back 1.5 million, because I didn't really think much about this. I was just going to wait and see. I'd say, I guess a more realistic number could be between 2 and 3 million.
I think anything under 2 million, I think combines them. Utter disappointment.
Which is fair. Which is fair because Thurman Garcia, that peaked at 5.1 million.
And it was on free TV. You're talking CBS, or you're talking in terms of about 100, and I think it's a little bit. I know it's a little bit over 100 million viewers. Subscriber bases that I think combined are right around 50. So you're talking, you want a little bit more of that market share and more of that share, but I think just considering now the buzz that this fight is generated and the live viewing airs in a little bit over 3 hours from now. Before I get that, are you to watch the replay?
Yeah.
Tonight?
Yeah, I'm definitely
putting my
gonna watch
wife through. I'm putting my wife through the torture, and she's gonna watch. She's not home yet. I already told her. I texted her before we came on, and I'm like, she's like, "How was the fight?" She's like, "You know, it seems like it's doing well." And I'm like, "The fight was amazing." And guess what? You're watching it at 10 o'clock this evening in Illinois, in Chicago. I'm like, this evening we're watching that fight, just so you know. And she just put, "Oh." She's gonna go through the greatness I went through, and I think she's gonna enjoy it. But I'm looking forward to that. But at the end of the day, under 2 is a disappointment. I think even 2 is a disappointment. I'm more than the 2.5, 3 million. I'm thinking more going to go with 2.7, 2.75. I'm going to go there combined. I may be a little high, but I feel that strongly about. I think HBO will do the better number just because it's HBO, and it's no knock on Showtime at all. I thought Showtime, the way Showtime handled everything today, I thought was amazing, and I thought the broadcast was good. Paulie Malignaggi actually was tolerable for once. Of course, Moro was amazing. Al Bernstein was Al Bernstein. He was amazing too. And there's a lot of buzz going into tonight now. I think you're going to get a lot of people already watched it once are going to watch it again. I really do. Because the fight was that good. It was that good. It was that great to where I think you're going to get that turnover. I'm a wholehearted believer of that. I'm going with 2.75.
Okay, that's a pretty fair number.
You went between 2 and 3. You went between 2 and 3. Sorry to cut you off. You were very wide in that scope there, buddy. You're not getting away with it. You got to give the fans at Fightful, give the people a number, my friend. Sorry, I'm amped up, guys. No, I'm not.
Okay, really quickly before we finish wrapping up. I'll give a...
You didn't give a number.
2.25.
You still didn't give a number. How much?
2.25.
2.25. Okay, all right. Now go. I try to skirt out of that there, Mr. Toro.
Okay, so we're just about to wrap things up. Thank you for everybody that joined our live chat. It's and I have Sean just direct messaging me on Twitter. Give a number, which is like
thank you. The man, the myth, the man, the legend, the man who runs the ship. Sean Ross Sapp agrees with me. Two great minds think alike, Sean. You have to give the people what they want, man.
Okay, I'm saying 2.25 million. And
okay.
All right. So thank you to everybody that joined in on our live podcast. Our largest live chat, live viewership so far in the month and a half that we've been doing this. a month. Actually, no, month. Not month and a half, month. But even still,
Month. Yeah.
it's still. Thank you so much. Leave a comment in the video, in the podcast. Visit Fightful.com. We have a ton of different great stuff. Tomorrow, Payback. Check out the Fightful Wrestling Podcast with Sean Ross Sapp. Great, always an entertaining podcast. And again, thank you so much once again to everybody giving us all the positive feedback, because I get a ton of positive feedback. I don't know the kind of feedback that you get, but I get nothing but great things, and I'm so thankful for it. We're doing this for you guys. We're doing this for all of you guys.
I was really, me and you were talking off air Thursday evening, and me and you we have goals. We're regular human beings, but when we're two very competitive people, and I was looking forward to this all day. I've been looking forward to that just because I'm looking forward to the fight in general, but I was really looking forward to this particular podcast just because of great feedback, and we're, like Carlos said, we're very, very grateful. We're fans at beginning of the day, at the end of the day. In the middle, yeah, we happen to do this. This is something, but we love to do it, and this site's amazing. And a lot of people this site's finally getting what it deserves. It's getting a lot of great traction. It's got a lot of great, rabid fans, a lot of great staff. Podcasts, we got the Payback video podcast tomorrow. Make sure you guys watch that after the show. I want to say about Payback. WWE, it's always an entertaining show, and we're going to bring it like no one else can. And we got Sean Ross Sapp leading the helm tomorrow night, and we got guys like Showdown Joe, Elias Theodore, the best hair guys that I say in mixed martial arts. You got Sean Pearson, you got the great Frank Trigg, UFC Hall of Famer Frank Trigg, and then you have, to me, the best indie wrestler in the world today in the future of wrestling. We got my favorite man, the man who beat The Rock in 2003, Hurricane Helms. So Shane Hurricane Helms. So a lot of great stuff here. We're just we're just a very tiny part. Glad to be doing this, and thank everyone for watching and listening and leaving comments, and it means a lot to us. So thank you. And so, I always go along with that. I don't know why.
I'm sorry?
I go along with it all the time. I don't know why, but I'm just grateful because we get to do this together, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And it's fights like this, Carlos, and I sincerely say this, and this that make it great. That it makes it great to do this. It really does.
All right, so visit Fightful.com. We'll have around-the-clock coverage of all the biggest UFC events. WWE, boxing will definitely be back next week with a Canelo versus Cesar Chavez preview. And hopefully, I don't know what the podcasting schedule is like, and I have to talk it over with Sean, but we may do another podcast similar to this after Canelo and Chavez. After Canelo and Chavez Jr. And so visit Fightful.com for all the best, the only site that gives you MMA, wrestling, and boxing coverage. For Stephen Muehlhausen, I'm Carlos Toro, signing out. Again, thank you for everybody that joined in.